The first signal arrived without fanfare, a steady pulse woven into the background radiation that humanity had long considered cosmic noise. Dr. Adrian Cole was the first to isolate it, and as he sat in the dimly lit observation chamber of the lunar array, he felt an unwelcome certainty sink into his chest. It was deliberate, rhythmic, and waiting for an answer. He alerted the orbital command, though he already knew what their reaction would be: panic wrapped in the language of protocol. Within hours, the great powers of Earth had dispatched representatives to the Orbital Defense Station Sentinel-1, where Captain Elias Rourke paced the length of the command deck like a caged predator. Rourke had spent a lifetime watching politicians tremble and generals posture, and he had little patience for either. When Cole was escorted in, clutching a stack of data slates against his ribs, Rourke barely looked up. "Tell me," Rourke said, his voice gravel-edged, "that we're dealing with another Miss Reed starburst." Cole shook his head. "Not a chance. It's a directed signal, aimed straight at Earth. And, Captain, it's slowing." The words had barely left his lips when the alarms rang out. On the holosphere above the deck, a fleet materialized, blotches of cold light drifting against the dark canvas of space. They did not advance. They simply waited. General Marcus Steele arrived soon after, shoulders squared like a granite wall carved into uniform. Where Rourke's sarcasm often disguised his unease, Steele carried his convictions like a weapon. He stared at the alien formation with the narrowed eyes of a man who had fought wars on every continent and still hungered for clarity in combat. "Big bastards," Steele muttered. "And they didn't sneak in. They wanted us to see them coming." The station shuddered as the alien signal shifted to audio. A voice emerged, resonant and strangely calm, the cadence of someone offering a deal already concluded. "People of Earth, you are under no threat from us. We arrive not as conquerors, but as guardians. The galaxy harbors predators that you cannot comprehend. From this moment, you are shielded. Your world is protected." The words hung in the silence of the command deck. Officers glanced at one another, some with relief, others with suspicion. Steele folded his arms, unimpressed. "They want us to feel safe," he growled. "That alone makes me nervous." Cole adjusted his glasses, still analyzing the data streaming in. "Their energy signatures are real enough. They've deployed some kind of lattice around the system, enormous, efficient. If they wished us harm, they could reduce Earth to ashes in minutes." "That doesn't mean they're our friends," Rourke said. His eyes stayed fixed on the ghostly outlines of the alien fleet, his jaw working like a man chewing over bitter truths. "Protection has a price. Always does." An emissary appeared, projected in pale blue light. Tall, elegant, skin like silver glass. Its voice was steady, carrying the practiced tone of one who had reassured countless civilizations before. "You will not suffer invasion, nor famine, nor extinction. We will stand between you and all that would harm you. This is our gift." Rourke stepped closer, tilting his head like a wolf circling a stranger on his territory. "And what do you expect in return?" The emissary tilted its head, almost surprised by the question. "Nothing. Only your peace. You need not fight, you need not struggle. Rest beneath our shield." Steele barked a laugh that echoed through the chamber. "So they want us docile. Sheep in a pasture. That's worse than conquest." Cole, ever the rationalist, murmured, "Perhaps it's genuine. A benevolent alliance. There could be threats we truly don't understand." "Doctor," Rourke said without turning, "I've fought men who smiled as they slipped a knife under your ribs. Sincerity isn't proof of innocence." The emissary faded, leaving silence heavier than before. Around them, the station's officers shifted uneasily, glancing to Rourke and Steele for direction. Neither man gave any order. Hours passed. Earth erupted in debates, broadcasts filled with joy and fear alike. Some hailed the aliens as saviors, while others denounced them as tyrants in disguise. Yet on the command deck of Sentinel-1, the mood remained grim. Cole approached Rourke at the viewing port, where the captain stood alone, staring at the alien constructs glimmering in orbit. "You don't believe them," Cole said quietly. Rourke smirked, though the humor never reached his eyes. They say they'll protect us. And that's it?
Dang.
They don't even realize what they're dealing with. He leaned against the glass, voice lowering into something harder. We didn't claw our way through wars, plagues, and centuries of our own mistakes just to be tucked into bed by strangers. We're still standing because we fight. Take away the fight, and you take away who we are. Behind them, General Steele grunted in approval. If they think humanity's going to roll over and wag its tail, they're in for one hell of a surprise. For the first time since the fleet had appeared, Rourke allowed himself a thin smile. The conflict was no longer about invasion or survival. It was about dignity, pride, and the refusal to be diminished. Whatever came next, Earth would not face it kneeling. The signal pulsed again, a reminder of the alien presence and their silent expectation of gratitude. Rourke folded his arms, his gaze steady as the stars. "Let them believe we're helpless," he said. "It'll make what comes next all the sweeter." Earth changed in days, not years. Where once the night sky had been a tapestry of familiar constellations, now alien machinery stitched its own luminous geometry across the heavens. Great arcs of metallic lattice shimmered above the atmosphere, forming a protective web that reflected sunlight like a second dawn. To the average citizen, it was breathtaking. To Captain Elias Rourke, it looked like a gilded cage. From the observation deck of Sentinel-1, Rourke watched the alien constructs grow, piece by piece, guided by drones that moved with eerie precision. Their silent choreography betrayed a mastery of engineering far beyond human capacity. Yet the beauty of their work only deepened Rourke's unease. He could feel the quiet hum of submission creeping into the hearts of those around him, politicians speaking of cooperation, citizens praising safety. Dr. Adrian Cole, by contrast, immersed himself in the data. His quarters were a jungle of holographic projections and shifting graphs, all centered on the alien technology now embedded in Earth's infrastructure. Transit grids ran smoother than ever, energy flows were stabilized, and diseases were being cured overnight by biofields seeded in urban centers. Still, Cole's brow remained furrowed. "They're collecting," he told Rourke one evening, tapping a projection that depicted Earth's global neural net. "Every interaction, every decision, every pattern of thought. The lattice isn't just shielding us, it's watching us, mapping us." Rourke leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "For what?" Cole shrugged, uneasy. "To understand us. Or control us. Or both. They call it optimization. I call it surveillance." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Javier Cruz, a young pilot barely 5 years into service, but already notorious for bending protocol to the breaking point. He entered with the restless energy of someone who hated stillness. "Captain," Cruz said, saluting with casual sharpness, "the new drone patrols just passed within 5 kilometers of our covert training bay. If they're not suspicious now, they will be soon." Rourke dismissed the salute. "Let them be. They'll see what they expect. Docile defenders polishing old relics." He glanced at Cole. "And, if they're listening, I hope they're taking notes." The training bay in question was buried beneath the oceans, shielded from orbital sensors by thick layers of electromagnetic interference. Inside, a skeleton crew of loyal officers restored mothballed warships, obsolete by alien standards, but familiar and responsive in human hands. Cruz oversaw the refitting, often covered in grease and sweat, grinning like a man fixing up a classic car for the apocalypse. "These ships won't win us a war," Cruz admitted, wiping oil from his brow as Rourke inspected the progress. "But they'll make one hell of a first impression." Elsewhere, General Marcus Steele held closed-door meetings with global defense leaders, pressing them to maintain sovereignty in the face of growing alien influence. His rhetoric was fierce, but it was Rourke who translated that fire into action, quietly building a coalition of skeptics, men who saw the gift of protection as a poisoned offering. The turning point came when Cole cracked the encryption on a fragment of alien code buried within the lattice systems. What he found chilled even his scientifically hardened mind. "They've categorized us," he said, voice trembling slightly. We're listed under pre-ascendant species, containment recommended. Their protection isn't charity. It's quarantine. They don't want us expanding, evolving, or becoming competitors. Rourke took the slate from him and read the cold, clinical assessment written by a civilization that saw humanity not as partners, but as variables to be managed. His jaw clenched, and the silence stretched long enough for Cole to speak again. "They've done this before," he whispered. "There are dozens of species like us, all under similar lattices, all pacified. They think they've cracked the code on civilization," Rourke said, his voice low and deliberate. "But they've never met one like ours." That night, he called a meeting with Steele, Cole, and Cruz. The four men stood around a dimly lit holodeck displaying the alien network now encircling Earth. Rourke's eyes moved from face to face, gauging the weight of their resolve. "They didn't come here to conquer," he said. "They came here to cage. They believe that order is peace, that control is safety. And maybe most species are fine with that. But we're not most species." Cruz leaned forward, his youthful bravado sharpened into conviction. "Then let's show them. Let's show them what it means to be human." Steele nodded, stone-faced. "We fight. Not because we hate them, but because we won't be tamed." Cole didn't speak at first. He stared at the lattice lines hovering above the table, then finally looked up. "If we're going to do this, we'll need more than weapons. We'll need to outthink them, outsmart them, break their system from the inside." Rourke smiled faintly, a grim satisfaction settling over him. "Then we start now. Quietly. Carefully. We'll make them believe we've accepted their offer. And when they're certain we're under their thumb, we'll break it." The plan wasn't finalized that night, but the intent was forged. In the quiet recesses of the orbital station, among men who refused to surrender their autonomy, the first embers of rebellion began to glow. Outside, the alien lattice glittered like a crown above the Earth, beautiful and terrible. It hummed with the energy of protection, but to those watching from Sentinel-1, it was a siren's lullaby, a promise meant to sedate, not to save. Rourke stood alone at the viewport long after the others had left, the planet turning slowly beneath him. He whispered to no one in particular, "They came offering peace. They'll leave knowing resistance." And somewhere, far beyond the reach of alien algorithms, the human spirit stirred, restless, defiant, and ready. The first sparks of defiance flared in silence. Across hidden hangars, forgotten bunkers, and commandeered shipyards, men labored in secrecy, breathing life into vessels that had once been declared obsolete. The rebellion was not yet loud, but it was inevitable, and Captain Elias Rourke could feel it thrumming in the marrow of every man under his command. The alien lattice loomed overhead, glistening like a net across the sky, yet beneath its shadow humanity sharpened its teeth. Dr. Adrian Cole worked day and night, his pale features worn by exhaustion but lit with the stubborn glow of obsession. His hands danced across flickering projections, tearing into alien code line by line. The fragments he unearthed painted a chilling pattern, entire worlds subdued under the same gentle promise Earth had received. Civilizations stripped not of their bodies, but of their wills. "They don't kill potential rivals," he told Rourke, voice hoarse from sleepless nights. "They suffocate them. Civilizations don't fall, they stagnate. Forever dependent, forever controlled." General Marcus Steele absorbed the revelation with grim satisfaction, as if it confirmed what he had always suspected. "I've fought enemies who wanted our land, our resources, our people. At least they were honest about it. These creatures are worse. They want our spirit." His voice carried the weight of a lifetime in combat, a man who had watched nations fracture under weaker chains than this. Lieutenant Javier Cruz, restless as ever, was less interested in philosophy than in action. "So they want us tamed? Fine. But we've got claws they've never seen." His grin was all teeth, reckless but infectious. Among the younger pilots and engineers, Cruz had become a symbol of something raw and unbreakable, a reminder that rebellion was not born only of strategy, but of fury. Together, they formed the nucleus of Earth's resistance. Their numbers were small, Their resources meager compared to the vast alien armada above, but they possessed what the invaders lacked: the audacity to fight against inevitability. The first strike was Cruz's doing. Against orders, he led a squadron of retrofitted fighters on a raid against an alien relay stationed in low orbit. Outnumbered, outgunned, they should have been annihilated. Yet by exploiting blind spots in alien drone formations and masking their approach with Earth's magnetic field, they managed to plant crude nuclear charges along the relay's core. The explosion lit the night sky, visible from half the planet. For the first time since the lattice had been erected, a piece of it lay shattered. The retaliation was immediate. Alien emissaries appeared on every broadcast channel, their measured tones sharpened into warning. Do not resist. Safety requires obedience. Disobedience invites destruction. On Sentinel-1, Rourke stood unmoved as the message ended. Around him, his officers watched with a mix of fear and pride. They're finally speaking plain, he said. Not guardians. Not saviors. Just jailers with sharper teeth. The rebellion spread. Cells formed in secret, coordinated through coded transmissions Cole embedded within the very lattice the aliens believed unbreakable. Sabotage became daily ritual. Drones crashed mysteriously, supply lines faltered, energy flows diverted. Each act of defiance carried terrible risk, yet the fire of resistance grew hotter with every success. Cole, once cautious, began to change. Nights spent decrypting alien systems hardened him, and he spoke with a conviction that surprised even himself. They've studied countless civilizations, but they've miscalculated ours. They think struggle is weakness. They don't understand it's our strength. Steel assembled fragmented armies into a single force, convincing generals and commanders across rival nations to set aside grudges older than memory. We are not Russians or Americans, Africans or Asians, he thundered during one clandestine gathering. We are men who refuse to be broken. And that is enough. Alien patience wore thin. Their fleet advanced closer, their drones more aggressive. Whole sectors of Earth's orbit became kill zones patrolled by machines that vaporized anything unauthorized. Still, resistance continued, each battle sharpening humanity's resolve. Losses were heavy, but each victory was a seed planted in the soil of defiance. Cruz's squadron struck again, this time targeting a mothership supply conduit. The attack was reckless, the kind of maneuver that bordered on suicide, yet it succeeded in crippling the vessel. Cruz returned to base with half his squadron gone, his fighters scarred and smoking. As he pulled himself from the cockpit, he laughed through cracked lips. You should have seen their faces when a junker from Earth carved them open. Rourke clapped him on the shoulder, pride tempered with the weight of sacrifice. Every loss we take carves their illusion thinner. They'll learn soon enough, we don't bend, even when we break. But the aliens were not idle. Cole intercepted new transmissions, darker than before. They're preparing to escalate, he told the others, his voice grave. Extermination isn't off the table. If they can't pacify us, they'll erase us. The words hung heavy in the war room, the weight of annihilation pressing on them all. Yet Steele only leaned forward, eyes burning with unyielding resolve. Good. At least we know where we stand. I'd rather face an honest enemy than a lying savior. Rourke studied the lattice projection, his mind racing. The rebellion had revealed their spirit, but survival would demand more than defiance. They needed strategy, coordination, a blow that would show the aliens' Earth was not prey, but predator. He looked at the men around him, Cole with his brilliance, Cruz with his fire, Steele with his iron, and countless others waiting in the shadows of history. They promised us protection, Rourke said, his voice steady. Instead, they gave us chains. Now we'll give them something in return. Fear. And so the rebellion reached its turning point. What began as scattered defiance was hardening into a war. The lattice still hung above Earth, gleaming and immense, but it no longer seemed untouchable. For the first time, humanity was not waiting for permission to survive. As Rourke turned back to the stars, his expression was no longer grim but resolute. They'll call us reckless. They'll call us dangerous, but they'll never again call us helpless. The alien fleet gathered, preparing for escalation. Humanity gathered too, its spirit sharpened into defiance. The storm was coming, and both sides knew it. You said. The war came in fire. The alien fleet descended in a display of power designed to crush both resistance and hope. From Earth's surface, the night sky burned with streaks of light as colossal warships blotted out the stars. Their voices echoed across every channel once more, stripped now of gentle assurances. Humanity has rejected safety. Humanity will be erased. On the command deck of Sentinel-1, Captain Elias Rourke stood tall, his eyes locked on the holosphere. Around him, men braced themselves for the inevitable clash. This was no longer about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would not kneel. General Marcus Steele was the first to speak, his gravelly voice cutting through the tension. We hit them hard, hit them fast. They want extermination? Then we make it cost them more than they can afford. His tone was unyielding, the iron backbone of a soldier who had never feared the odds. Dr. Adrian Cole, pale and weary from endless nights deciphering alien code, leaned forward and activated a sequence of projections. I've cracked their shield lattice. Not entirely, but enough. If we can hijack their central conduits, we can turn their own defenses against them. It won't hold forever, but it will give us a window. At the table's edge, Lieutenant Javier Cruz's grin flashed like a knife. Then give me that window document. My squadron will drive straight down their throat. His recklessness was no longer immaturity, it had become inspiration. Among the younger men, Cruz was the embodiment of Earth's refusal to break. Rourke listened, weighing every word, then nodded. Steele, you'll lead the ground forces in a diversion. Cole, you and I will handle the lattice. Cruz, you strike the flagship once the shields drop. This isn't about surviving, it's about making them understand what it means to challenge us. The plan unfolded in chaos and brilliance. Human fleets surged from hidden bases, patched together warships bristling with outdated weapons, yet flown with desperate ingenuity. Against alien precision, they were crude, unpredictable, and lethal in their audacity. Steele's forces clashed in low orbit, sacrificing ships in daring maneuvers to fracture enemy formations. His voice thundered over the comms, steady even as his flagship blazed under enemy fire. Hold the line. If we fall standing. In the shadows of that chaos, Cole and Rourke infiltrated the alien lattice's control hub, using stolen protocols to slip past firewalls not meant to withstand human stubbornness. Cole's hands trembled as he rerouted streams of alien code, his voice tight. Almost there, give me time. You've got it, Rourke said, blasting apart a security drone that slipped through. His jaw was set, every fiber of his being focused on keeping Cole alive long enough to finish the job. When Cole finally injected the virus, the lattice shuddered. For a moment, the sky above Earth flickered, the alien shield spasming like a wounded beast. Cole sagged with exhaustion, but allowed himself a grim smile. It's theirs no longer. For now, it's ours. The opening was all Cruz needed. With a squadron reduced to barely a handful, he charged through the breach, weaving between alien cannons with impossible precision. His battered fighter screamed as it dove toward the alien flagship. He laughed through the comms, fearless. They called us helpless. Let's prove them wrong. The explosion rocked the heavens. Cruz's strike ignited the flagship's core, fire consuming its elegant hull in a blaze visible from the ground. The shock rippled through the alien fleet, their perfect formations unraveling as human ships surged forward, hammering them with relentless ferocity. Steele's voice came one last time, calm even as alarms wailed around him. Captain, this is where I make my stand. His ship, burning and crippled, rammed into an enemy dreadnought, tearing both vessels apart in a blinding detonation. The sacrifice tore a hole through the enemy lines, giving Earth's forces the upper hand. By the time the dust settled, the alien fleet was broken, retreating into the void they had once claimed to guard. The lattice above Earth collapsed piece by piece, raining fragments of their shattered control into the atmosphere like falling stars. On Sentinel-1, silence fell. The men stare at the wreckage with awe and grief, the cost of their defiance etched into every face. Cole slumped into his chair, his hands still shaking. We actually did it. Rourke stood before the viewport, his reflection cast against the bruised sky. He activated the broadcast system, his voice carrying not just to Earth, but to the galaxy that had watched silently until now. We never needed protection. What we needed was respect. Remember this day, all of you. Humanity is not a child to be sheltered. We are a force to be reckoned with. Across the stars, signals began to answer, faint, cautious, the voices of other species long smothered under alien lattices. They reached out to Earth not as wards, but as equals, drawn by the fire they had witnessed. As the broadcasts faded, Rourke remained at the window, watching fragments of the lattice burn in Earth's atmosphere. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of triumph and defiance. They offered us protection. We gave them resistance. And in the end, that was enough. The war was not over. No war ever truly ended, but the balance had shifted. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as prey, not as children, but as men who would not be caged. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. You said,